Alright, we all knew this was coming. Pokemon Legends Arceus has been heavily compared to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild by fans everywhere. Sure, some may argue a better comparison would be Pokemon Legends to Monster Hunter, but for the sake of the more common topic, we're discussing the comparison everyone seems to be making more. And actually, I don't think it's an unfair comparison. There are a lot of similarities and building off of Breath of the Wild's foundation in Pokemon Legends. There are some things that Legends has that Breath of the Wild doesn't, and vice versa. So let's have some fun and dissect everything I can think of to compare the two juggernaut games. For anyone that's new, I'm JotoJohnny, and I'm known for my analysis on video games. This video is part one of several episodes coming that will compare Pokemon Legends Arceus to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in great detail. Consider this my 10,000 subscribers special video. Yeah, like I said, there will be several videos on this topic, so you kind of get a mini-series to celebrate. As this will also be my first time deep dive analyzing two games at once, let's not waste any more time getting to the good stuff. Here we go. Let's start with the art style. Pokemon Legends Arceus and Zelda Breath of the Wild both sport a cel-shaded art style that closely mimics watercolor paintings or anime. Personally, I think both games do a great job with this effect. Zelda Breath of the Wild always keeps the cel shading, even in darker areas like caves, but Pokemon Legends actually gets rid of the cel shading whenever something takes place in a cave or a shadowed area. Personally, I prefer that variation Legends provides, but some might prefer Breath of the Wild's consistency. Regardless of what you like, I think objectively, both games generally satisfy players in the art style department. This category, albeit brief, ends in a tie. But what about art direction? The UI, location designs, use of skyboxes, weather, time of day? Well, I think both games offer gorgeous setting design, not many will deny that. Both games offer a lot of elevation and eye candy with their locales. Varied trees from region to region, cohesive items scattered that blend in with the environment while also standing out enough to be recognized as a collectible. Skyboxes that please the eye, weather conditions that completely change the mood of an adventure, dynamic day-night cycles. I have no qualms here. When it comes to UI, however, I think Pokemon Legends has a distinctive edge. While Breath of the Wild doesn't harm itself with its basic geometrical and translucent menus, nothing exactly screams style. However, Pokemon Legends is filled with old Japanese aesthetic, not only yelling style, but also character. A paintbrush stroke is drawn to hold your Pokemon's HP bar. Battle menus have different shapes and inkbrush typeface. Icons and cursors take the shape and sometimes even the coloration of Pokeballs. Sure, translucent menus exist here as well to never take you out of the action, but it means a little more this time as you get to always admire the Pokemon you have out with you. And items are almost always circular in shape or are held in circular pods within menus that, again, harken back to Pokeballs. In terms of overall mix of cohesion, character, and style, I think Pokemon Legends Arceus is the clear winner in this category, giving it a 1-point lead over Breath of the Wild so far. But then, we get to graphics. While both games sport graphics that are at least good enough, even in today's modern standards, Pokemon Legends Arceus just doesn't hold itself up as well as Breath of the Wild. Not many will contest that. Breath of the Wild is a technical marvel of keeping up great textures, thousands of grass blades, high polygon environments and models, and ultra-varied assets no matter where you are. All while taking place in a huge, seamless overworld where nearly everything is interactable. Pokemon Legends isn't bad, don't get me wrong. Textures are good and are a huge improvement from Sword and Shield. There are plenty of grass blades, polygon count is fine for environments and models, and assets at least vary from region to region and sometimes even segmented areas in a given region. But the flaws can all be quite noticeable, especially since sometimes the game aliases itself a lot, while other times it remains anti-aliased for a smoother picture like it should. It's overall far less consistent than Breath of the Wild, and this one has to go to Breath of the Wild as such, tying the score back up. The race continues on though, in performance. Which game is smoother? Well, both play with very little hiccups. Matter of fact, it's quite rare to find issues with performance in both games. Pokemon Legends Arceus runs smooth as butter and constantly adjusts polygons for assets as well as aliasing to maintain a steady frame rate. Breath of the Wild doesn't do the aliasing thing, but it does adjust polygons for models at a distance. And sometimes that bites it in the That's right, there are locations in Breath of the Wild that do consistently dip the frame rate, namely in highly forested areas such as the Faron Woods or the Korok Forest. Perhaps the aliasing technique would have been helpful here. Either way, with how huge the game is, I can't fault it for these sparse circumstances. As for Pokemon Legends, the only performance issue I've seen is the god-awful frame rate of Alpha and Flying Pokemon from afar. Literally 1 frame a second. I mean, it's almost comical. Again, can't fault the game too much though with these sparse circumstances. So, for performance, this one also ends in a tie. Now, one of the biggest differentiators for Pokemon Legends and Zelda Breath of the Wild is the open world setup. Let's tackle seamlessness between the games. Pokemon Legends is seamless in the sense that you can transition between overworld action into turn-based fights, there on the spot without a hitch. Menus are ultra fast and responsive, a first for the series in its mainline 3D outings. Pokemon and items can be switched through on the fly. Traversal, which, spoiler alert, will be its own category later on in the video, is seamless in all aspects of the word when it comes to getting around manually. But one thing is missing. The world is divided. And honestly, while this isn't a huge issue, it is made just a little worse by the fact that you can only get from one region to the other through Jubilife Village. Some shortcuts or at least fast travel options between regions would have made this far less of a hassle, but even still, there's no denying the power of the opposing game here. Breath of the Wild exists in a fully seamless world. Not only can you get everywhere in the game on foot with no fast travel required, but you can also enter buildings and homes seamlessly with no loading screen. The game really is far more seamless than Pokemon Legends. The only non-seamless part of Breath of the Wild is entering shrines and dungeons, which is far less of a hassle than how Legends can make getting from point A to point B a 3-step process rather than a 1-step. AKA warping, or traveling back to a camp, warping back to Jubilife, and then warping to the next destination. Sometimes this is a 4-step too, if you want to warp to one of the noble arenas or clan villages. This category handily goes to Zelda Breath of the Wild. Stop right there though. This is a similar category that Breath of the Wild does not win so handily in. Yeah, I just mentioned it a bit ago, Traversal. Zelda Breath of the Wild lets you traverse the world in a variety of fun ways. You can walk on foot, ride on a horse or likewise wild animal, glide on a hang glider, and my personal favorite, shield surf. While shield surfing is fun, it's limited to soft grounded slopes and always damages your shield regardless of the terrain. With riding your horse, it's fun to fight and ride at the same time, but keeping up with your horse's whip gauge can be annoying. With gliding, it's great to see the different locations as you glide, but you're always going down at a rapid pace, not to mention your stamina gauge gets eaten up. And with walking, well, it's walking with a stamina gauge. But where Breath of the Wild really slips up in Traversal is in its gorgeous waterways. Man, I really wish they hadn't missed this opportunity. This has to be some of the worst swimming I've ever seen in a video game ever. Pressing dash feels like it hinders you more than it helps, as it locks you into a direction and has like a 5-second cooldown as you slow down after flailing forward. My god, this feels horrible. Only one thing feels worse though. Swimming in Pokemon Legends! Until you get Basculegion, baby, then you're free to ski the waters, jump around, slow down time, seamlessly fly from the sky. Woohoo! Then hop back down on the ground, run on a weird ear, jump on a mountain and climb, then back to flying again, and man, all this without a stamina gauge. Seamlessly transitioning from one means of traversal to another, Pokemon Legends Arceus wins hard in this category. And with that, both games are tied now. But perhaps the next slew of categories will shake that up? That's right, there are more categories to judge, and I will be continuing them in part 2 of Pokemon Legends Arceus versus The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so stick around the channel to see the next episode. Until then, comment your thoughts so far. I've been JotoJohnny. Peace out.